Welcome back, folks. Happy New Year. All I can do for you today is apologise about this lighting in the room. Unfortunately, I'm really trying my best to make it work, considering the circumstances. I don't have my studio bit. It is being built back home, but we're going to unfortunately be in this sort of scenario for the next few months. Obviously, the lighting will be better in other videos, depending on the time of the day. I can try use natural light, but at the moment, I'm really sorry. But anyway, MMA news. We've got a few videos to make tonight. I want to say this first and foremost, Conor McGregor, he did it, he announced a date, and I think, look, as fans of the sport, especially me, I didn't care if he came back towards the end of the year. I mean, I was so praying he would be back in December. It was meant to be September last year and then December, and just never ended up happening. You know, the man has got 600 million in the bank, he's all over the place, but what I will say is I'm happy the date he's announced. June 29th, okay? Typically International Fight Week is in July, but they're doing it at the end of June this year. Could have been May. I would have liked May, so obviously they've got something planned for May. I'm thinking it's Islam Makhachev in May, potentially, something like that. But guys, come on. We have to just sit back and be grateful. And we're going to talk about the announcement. I just wanted a date, because now I'm not going to be sitting thinking, oh, I hope McGregor's on UFC 300. We know that's not going to happen. I'm going to make a completely separate video regarding UFC 300. I think it's in danger now a little bit. Bilal Muhammad and Leon Edwards is most likely going to be on it. That is scary in itself, because if that's the co-main event, you don't want it leaving a stale taste in your mouth. And that could, I mean, it could be an incredible fight, but they've both got no personality. And look, I've said for months now in videos, I kind of doubted McGregor was going to be on UFC 300 in the first place. Storyline wise, for the story aspect of it, if McGregor was on UFC 300, it would be great, because, you know, he changed the sport, biggest star in history, potentially his last fight, big comeback. It would have been incredible, it would have been great. However, I will say this, UFC 300 is going to sell probably 1 million pay-per-view buys, maybe a bit less, right? It's going to sell very well. If you have McGregor on the card, it'll do 1.3, 1.4 million, right? The fact that it's UFC 300, maybe it does, in my opinion, it probably does around 1 million buys, 900k, 800k buys, because of how stacked the card will allegedly be. You know, we've already got Aljo on it, Bo Nickel, and like, it's going to be a stacked card, so it's going to sell well anyway, so you might as well get 2 big pay-per-view events out of having McGregor on a separate event. It's smart of them, you know. International Fight Week, non-title headliner, Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor, June 29th. 6 months away now. Maybe McGregor needs to get a bit of that sniff stuff out of his system. I think he definitely does. Michael Chandler has been sitting waiting for a while, and I was thinking this, right? Maybe McGregor wants to have Michael, you know, Michael Chandler's been inactive, he's been waiting. If it's at 185, you know, it's just, McGregor is not interested in belts anymore. I think he's interested in legacy fights. He wants to complete a trilogy with Diaz. Then he'll have 2 trilogies under his belt in the organization, you know. He wants to fight Michael Chandler at 185, because then he potentially will break a record of a KO in 4 different divisions. Do you know what I mean? And that is legacy setting in itself. However, the fight being at 185 does absolutely nothing for the 185 division, because they're both lightweights. It does nothing for the welterweight division. It doesn't give you any right to then be like, okay, now I'm going to go back down to lightweight and do this. And I don't necessarily think McGregor can't make 170 or 155. He's been really slimming out. I think he's wanting to break records. I think he's giving himself 6 months to build himself into a middleweight frame. Also, this fight might not even happen at middleweight. I truly doubt it will happen at middleweight. I think Dana White will say, look, we can't really, like, you're not at 170, please, Conor. But if Conor wants to try break a record, say, you know, we fought in 4 different weight classes, that's on him, that's fair play to him. And maybe this is what he needs to motivate himself. If he's given himself 6 months to build a good frame for a middleweight fighter and eat and just be able to travel and not have to diet and stuff, it might be him in his happy place, and it might make the training more enjoyable for him. I think he's scraping the barrel for every ounce of motivation he has, because we've been waiting 3 years, guys. By the time the fight comes around, it will be literally 20 days until McGregor will be out of the cage for 3 years. He says the biggest comeback in sports history. If that's at middleweight and he breaks a record, fair play to him. You know, that's how he can market it. Michael Chandler sitting on the sidelines, he takes a lot of damage in fights, so it's pretty nice for Michael Chandler just to sit back and eat and just no. But I mean, one thing is, McGregor could have sprung this fight on him at any time. So the fact that you've announced it 6 months in advance, supposedly it's that date, supposedly it's gonna be at middleweight. I don't think it will be. Chandler's now like, oh lovely, now I have a date, I can chill for the next few months and then get straight into it. So in 3 months' time, they'll probably get into training camp, you know, have 3 months of good training. It's gonna be a good fight. I think McGregor needs to mentally check himself. He's probably motivated by breaking records, the biggest comeback ever. He'll almost be 36. He'll be 2 weeks away from being 36 when he comes back, which is just, I mean, it makes me feel old, first of all. And it's just an absolute, just crazy thing to think about. And guys, it's gonna be I'm just a bit gutted, you know. I'm gonna make a separate video on UFC 300 because I'm also gutted about that. I think that could have been I think if McGregor was on it, it would be one of the biggest weeks in history. It would be so exciting. But whatever. I thought it would be May, but I mean, if we wait until June, 6 months time, no problem. I just wanted a date, and I think a lot of fans just wanted a date. It's just like, stop dilly-dallying and announce a return date. We know we had a meeting with Dana White 2-3 days ago. Dana was like, look, we're thinking June 29th, Michael Chandler, 100% it's Michael Chandler. McGregor probably said, okay, you know, I don't think McGregor's in a rush. I think he's like begging for a fight, get me back in there as soon as possible. Then he decides to be given a date for 6 months' time, and in his head he probably is a bit annoyed, but you know, he can justify it well. He's got money in the bank, he can chill now for a few months. And I think for McGregor, he needs that motivation. I think, he's got the world titles, but now imagine breaking another record at middleweight, knocking out Michael Chandler, and that would be a great comeback, you know. But also you have to think about this. The injury, his leg. I mean, potentially, imagine if McGregor's a bit heavier, a bit like a fridge at middleweight, you know, he might not feel as fragile. And Michael Chandler, I don't care what you say, he won't be as explosive and fast at middleweight. At lightweight, he is. I just watched him versus Dan Hooker again. The straight to the body, darting in. The fight against Gaethje was incredible. Michael Chandler is a fan favourite fighter, and he doesn't ever have a boring fight. I rewatched the McGregor Poirier fight. McGregor does win on the feet in fights because he's that kind of. He is an imposing figure on the feet. He controls fights early with like his pressure, but more of like a counter punch pressure, and you can catch him. We know you can catch McGregor. His power doesn't necessarily translate over too much. I'd imagine he's a lot stronger now though than he was that 3 years ago. Think about it though. It's almost, he's had 2.5 years not in an intense training camp, just putting on weight, eating, lifting weights on HGH steroids. The man is a fridge right now, and I reckon he's walking around, you know, I'd say he's walking around 190. I'd say McGregor's 190 right now. He doesn't want to cut any weight, and he wants to fight 185. I mean, I don't think the fight will happen at 185. I think he'll have to cut at least 10 kilos, fight at 170. I think that makes the most logical sense. I also think it would give them a better excuse because, I mean, they can't say, these guys are lightweights. This will affect the lightweight ranking, but they're going to fight 2 weight classes above and about 20 kilos above as well. Do you know what I mean? It's like 15, 16 kilos difference. You can't really do that. But however, if it's at 170, it's like, okay, they can market it as these guys are at their biggest and their baddest. You know, middleweight, it doesn't work. They're both midgets for the middleweight division. Michael Chandler would be massive in there. If he could weigh in at 185, they wouldn't have to cut weight. That's the thing. And McGregor's biggest asset was the fact he would kill himself to make 145 and just be so powerful in there and light on his feet at the same time. But I think if you're boxing with Michael Chandler, you can definitely catch him, but if you don't put him away, he'll do that what he did against Gaethje. He'll just keep walking forward. People say his gas tank's an issue. Michael Chandler's gas tank is only an issue when he's missing punches. When you land shots on someone, that swing momentum, you have something to bounce your fist off of. When you're swinging punches and then you're bringing them back after putting all your power into something and you don't have that force to come back, you get more tired. And we've seen that when he swings recklessly, he does gas a wee bit. But even against Poirier, amazing fight. McGregor versus Chandler is the right fight to make because they're both coming off losses. I hope McGregor gets it done. I'm going to make a video obviously closer to the time. I don't know if the date will change. It might well change, but well, I want to see who's headlining in May. And I think this year will be a pretty good year for the UFC. You know, it's going to be hard to top some years. I think they'll try to get O'Malley to fight August. I think O'Malley will fight in March, then be back in August. I don't think they'll have him fight under a McGregor card. There's no point in that. I think he'll headline a show in August. May, potentially they're going back to the UK, back to England. That would make a lot of sense. But only issue with that is if Leon Edwards is fighting in April, they won't have him on the England card, which would make sense. But, you know, I want to see where they go in May. Boston in August, put O'Malley back there. That would be cool. You know, put O'Malley back a year after he winning the belt, against someone like Merab or Sanhagen. Yeah, I mean, I want Peter Yan to get back to winning ways and have that Peter Yan rematch because that was a brilliant fight. Anyway, what do you guys think? I mean, I think the whole situation is pretty crazy. I don't think McGregor's looking for belts anymore. He wants big fights, legacy fights, record-breaking fights. And I think that's the only way he's going to motivate himself. Because in the back of his mind, he's aware of all this. He's not an idiot. McGregor isn't delusional. You have to have a wee bit of delusion, but you also have to have like the realism of like, yeah, I'm 36 soon. I'm giving myself 6 months to get off the coke and get back on the straight and narrow. And I want to see his head shape go back to normal. I want to see all this. But anyway, thank you folks. Thanks for watching. Give me your thoughts on the fight. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I will see you guys all in the next video. Again, I'm so sorry about the lighting.